Black in turn greeted a deaf visitor in sign language, not knowing the CEO was watching. The marble lobby of Harrington Global, one of the city's most powerful financial firms, gleamed under harsh white lights. Its polished floor reflected more pride than its people did. Executives hurried past with cell phones glued to their ears, their conversations sharp and hollow. The place was a cathedral of money, but also of silence, the kind of silence that smothered anyone who didn't belong. On an ordinary Tuesday morning, that silence was broken, not by words, but by desperate hands moving in the air. A man in an elegant gray suit stood at the reception desk, his gestures fluid yet urgent. He was deaf, and his hands told a story the receptionist couldn't or wouldn't understand. "I'm sorry, sir," she said, irritation lacing her words. "If you can't speak properly, I don't know how to help you. You'll need to send an email or something." Her sigh carried the entitlement of someone who had never been forced to fight for understanding. The man's shoulders slumped, and his hands slowed, collapsing midair. It was the posture of someone used to being dismissed, used to his needs being treated like an inconvenience. Around him, people glanced and then looked away, unwilling to engage. But not everyone. Across the lobby, Amara Bennett, 25, stood balancing a tray of overpriced cappuccinos for senior partners who barely remembered her name. 3 months into her internship at Harrington Global had been enough to reveal the culture, polished smiles covering prejudice, fake courtesies masking cruelty, and zero patience for anything that threatened the firm's pristine rhythm. Amara's stomach tightened as she watched the man's quiet defeat. She thought of her younger brother, Caleb, born deaf, who had faced this very wall of indifference countless times. Something in her refused to let this become just another moment of silent exclusion. Before fear could stop her, Amara set down the tray, walked to the desk, and raised her hands. "Hello, sir. Can I help you?" The man's face lit up instantly. Relief washed over him, as though a door had opened in a locked room. "Thank you. I thought no one here would understand me." He signed. The entire lobby froze. Conversations halted, footsteps slowed, and heads turned toward the sight of a black intern interpreting with effortless fluency, while the receptionist, who had dismissed him seconds earlier, stood mute. What Amara didn't realize was that Jonathan Harrington, CEO and founder, had just stepped out of the executive elevator. Known for his piercing blue eyes that could unravel executives with a single glance, Jonathan paused and watched, silently absorbing every movement. But not everyone saw inspiration. From across the lobby, Elaine Bradford, head of corporate communications, watched with a tight smile masking her fury. Elaine was a woman who thrived on control, whose mediocrity had been carefully hidden under expensive suits and loud authority. To her, competence from someone beneath her was not admirable. It was dangerous. "Well, isn't this touching?" Elaine's voice rang out, sharp as glass, cutting across the silence. The words echoed deliberately, ensuring every ear caught them. Amara froze, her pulse quickening. "An intern," Elaine continued, her heels clicking like a countdown as she approached, "playing interpreter in our lobby. How adorable." Executives exchanged glances. Some smirked, others frowned. The receptionist straightened, relieved someone else was redirecting the spotlight. "I apologize, sir." Amara signed quickly to the visitor. "It seems I may have overstepped." "Exactly," Elaine said coldly, seizing the moment. "Protocols exist for a reason. Interns fetch coffee and make copies. They do not interpret for clients. That requires certified professionals. Do you imagine a few hand gestures will impress anyone important here?" The visitor frowned, sensing hostility even without hearing it. He touched Amara's arm gently and signed, "You don't need to apologize for being kind." "Thank you." When Amara translated his words aloud, a ripple of discomfort spread across the lobby. A few faces shifted uneasily. Elaine, however, was intoxicated by her own performance. "Ambition," Elaine sneered. 3 months here, and already trying to be indispensable? Let me remind you, Miss Bennett, interns stay invisible until they earn the right to be seen. Amara inhaled slowly, steadying herself. She thought of Caleb, of every time people had spoken over him, dismissed him. For a moment she almost yielded, but something in her gaze hardened. "Sir," she signed directly to the visitor, ignoring Elaine's presence. "It was an honor to assist you. I hope you find what you're looking for with Harrington Global." The man smiled, his hands moving quickly in return. "You're the first person here who treated me with respect. And you'll be pleased to know I'm here to meet the CEO about a multi-million-dollar accessibility partnership." The lobby fell silent again. Elaine blinked, her smug expression faltering. This was no ordinary guest. This was Victor Delgado, founder of a national accessibility initiative. "Well," Elaine said quickly, scrambling to recover, "Mr. Harrington will, of course, provide you a professional interpreter for such a meeting." "Actually," a deep voice interrupted, resonating across the marble lobby, "I believe we already have the perfect interpreter." Every head turned. Jonathan Harrington walked forward, his presence commanding the air. Elaine visibly paled. "Mr. Harrington," she stammered, "I was simply ensuring protocol. For humiliating an employee who demonstrated extraordinary competence and compassion." Jonathan's tone was calm, but the edge beneath it was lethal. Amara stood motionless, though her eyes briefly met Jonathan's. In his gaze, she saw something unexpected, not just authority, but recognition. "Miss Bennett," Jonathan said firmly, "you'll join Mr. Delgado and me for our meeting. It seems you're exactly who we need." And with that, the CEO, the visitor, and in turn walked toward the elevators, leaving Elaine Bradford trembling in the ruins of her own arrogance. 2 hours later, in Jonathan Harrington's sleek corner office, the course of Amara's life shifted forever. Victor Delgado leaned back in his chair, smiling warmly. "Your interpretation was outstanding," he signed. "But more than that, you conveyed my intent, not just my words. That is rare." Amara blushed, signing her thanks. Jonathan cleared his throat. "Mr. Delgado is evaluating Harrington Global for a partnership that could redefine our accessibility standards. Miss Bennett, I'd like you to lead our communications for this initiative." Amara blinked. "Sir, You're not just anything," Jonathan interrupted. "You're the first person in this building who demonstrated what inclusion actually looks like." Victor added, "And I'd like you to serve as project liaison, not as an intern, but as a consultant." Amara's heart pounded. A consultant? Her own role? Jonathan leaned forward, his voice softening. "I should tell you something. My daughter, Emily, was deaf. She passed 3 years ago in a car accident, but she taught me the basics of sign language, enough that I understood what happened in the lobby, including every word Elaine used against you." His voice faltered briefly. "Emily used to say, people who truly communicate don't just translate words. They translate humanity. You reminded me of her today." Amara swallowed hard. Beneath her professional mask, tears pricked her eyes. But Jonathan's expression hardened again. "I must warn you, Elaine will not take this lightly. She thrives on control and will likely try to sabotage you. She plays politics like a blood sport." Victor studied Amara carefully before signing. "The question is, are you prepared for war?" Amara exhaled slowly, then surprised them both with a quiet, steady smile. "Gentlemen, with respect, you think I survived 3 months in this place by chance? Elaine has been undermining me since day one. I've documented every slight, every insult, every discriminatory comment. 40 hours of recordings, emails, witness statements. If she escalates, I'm prepared." Jonathan raised an eyebrow. "You've been preparing? When you grow up being underestimated," Amara said simply, "you learn that documentation is your only protection. My brother taught me that. Caleb records every interaction at school to guard against discrimination. Evidence is more powerful than outrage." She reached into her bag and placed a small recorder on the desk. Elaine assumes interns are too naive to defend themselves. She couldn't be more wrong. For a long moment, Jonathan simply studied her. Then a slow smile spread across his face. "Miss Bennett," he said, "welcome to the team. From this moment forward, you have full autonomy to handle Elaine Bradford however you see fit." The next morning, Elaine struck first. She convened a board meeting, armed with a slideshow accusing Jonathan of favoritism and Amara of being unqualified. She expected applause. Instead, Jonathan allowed her to speak uninterrupted, then nodded to Amara. Amara calmly placed a recorder on the table. "With your permission, I'd like to play a few clips." Elaine's face drained of color, the room filled with her own voice. These diversity interns are all the same. They're here for quotas, not talent. They should fetch coffee and stay invisible. Gasps erupted. Board members shifted uncomfortably. Out of context. Elaine snapped. "Let's hear full context then." Amara said coolly, pressing play again. Another clip. "People like her don't belong in the front office. Clients don't take them seriously. Better to keep them in the background." The silence that followed was deadly. Jonathan rose slowly. "Elaine Bradford, you've embarrassed this company, demeaned our staff, and exposed us to legal risk. Effective immediately, you are terminated for cause. Security will escort you out." Elaine sputtered, protesting, but her words collapsed under the weight of her own recordings. She was let out, her heels clattering like the last desperate beat of a broken drum. Harrington Global looked nothing like it had before. Under Amara's leadership, the Accessibility and Inclusion Division had expanded into a cornerstone of the company. Their new policies weren't just compliant, they were revolutionary. Profits soared, reputation transformed. Fortune 500 firms sought to copy their model. Amara's name appeared in business journals, not as the intern, but as Director of Accessibility and Inclusion. Her office overlooked the city skyline. On the door, Amara Bennett, Executive Director. Caleb visited often, signing proudly. "You didn't just win, you changed everything." Jonathan, too, was transformed. The company launched the Emily Initiative, funding scholarships for deaf and disabled students. "My daughter didn't die in vain," he told Amar quietly one afternoon. "Her legacy lives through you." And Elaine Bradford? She had become a cautionary tale. No firm would touch her. Her name appeared in case studies about corporate toxicity. Her downfall replayed as a warning. Never underestimate those you try to silence. Sometimes Amara thought Elaine, not with anger, but with clarity. Elaine had believed cruelty was power. She had been wrong, because the most devastating revenge is not humiliation. It is undeniable success. And Amara Bennett had written that lesson across an entire industry.